Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we really dig into sources to pull out the key insights, giving you that shortcut to getting properly informed.
That's good.
And today we're diving into some really powerful stuff, excerpts from The Reign of Greed. It's a foundational piece of Filipino literature.
Absolutely foundational.
Our journey kicks off, well, not with some grand opening, but with this really stark dedication. It says, to the memory of the priests, Don Mariano Gomez, Don Jose Burgos, and Don Jacinto Zamora, executed in Bagumbayan Field on the 28th of February, 1872.
Yeah, and that immediately sets the tone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Grounding it right away in real-world injustice. It's not just a story. Rizzo's basically saying, look, literature is a weapon here. It's an urgent social statement.
Right.
And for context, that execution, the GMBRZA execution, it was huge, a massive turning point in Philippine history, a terrible injustice that really fired up nationalist feelings. So this dedication, it's direct. It tells you exactly what this novel is about. So we're about to explore this 19th century colonial society. It's full of abuses, massive class divides, and this desperate hope for change. And we see it all through these incredibly vivid characters.
And the source material for this deep dive, it's this detailed narrative, right? Lots of chapters, this whole rich picture of colonial life. It gives us these direct insights into how society works, the personal struggles, the politics bubbling underneath.
Exactly. A real tapestry.
So our mission today is to unpack that critique, the societal commentary that's woven into these pages. We'll pull out the surprising bits, connect the dots, and hopefully give you that shortcut to really understanding this pivotal piece of history and literature.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so the story opens with this really strong metaphor, the steamship Tabo. This first image, it tells us so much about Rizal's intention right from the start.
Definitely.
The ship's described as unwieldy, always puffing out great clouds of smoke, struggling with sandbars, almost like the text says, a tyrant who would rule by shouting.
And what's so clever, I think, is how the ship itself, its physical layout, just perfectly mirrors the social structure. You've got the lower deck,
Right.
packed with brown faces and black heads, types of Indians, Chinese, and mestizos, literally wedged in between bales of merchandise and boxes. Crowded, uncomfortable.
And then the upper deck.
Totally different scene. Up there, beneath an awning, you find a few passengers dressed in the fashion of Europeans, friars, and government clerks. They're sitting in comfortable chairs.
Just relaxing.
Apparently, yeah. Seemingly without heeding the efforts of the captain trying to navigate the river. And that really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Who actually feels the bunts when this ship of state hits those sandbars?
That's a great question. And the book doesn't waste any time showing us, does it? The characters up there on that upper deck, they give us our first real taste of the personalities and prejudices of this society.
Oh, yeah.
Let's start with Doña Victorina. She's the only lady seated in the European group, and she's just constantly complaining, right? Laying into the cascos, bancas, those are local boats, the Indians paddling about, even washerwomen and bathers.
She's something else.
And she says this astonishing thing, wishing there were not a single Indian in the world. Just think about that. The helmsmen are Indian, the sailors, the engineers, 99% of the passengers.
And she herself.
Exactly. She herself also an Indian if the rouge were scratched off. Plus, she's on this weird mission to find her husband, Don Tiburcio.
Doña Victorina is such a masterful creation by Rizal. He uses her to really dissect the psychological damage of colonialism, how the colonized can tragically end up hating themselves, internalizing the oppressor's view.
That whole trying to Europeanize herself.
It's a key critique, really stinging.
Then there's Simon, the rich jeweler. He's described as the advisor and inspirer of the Captain General himself. He's got this weird accent, wears these enormous blue goggles.
Very mysterious figure at first.
And his idea for clearing the lake, it's shocking. He just says, destroy them, meaning the villages nearby.
Does like them out.
Or he says, don't pay them, use the prisoners and convicts, and if you run out of those, just force all the villagers, the old men, the youths, the boys, work 3, 4, 5 months for the state. And, oh, by the way, they have to bring their own food and tools.
And if you look at the bigger picture, Simon's ideas, okay, they're extreme, but they really spotlight this brutal colonial logic. It's a mindset where people, the local population, are just resources, things to be used.
Dehumanizing.
Completely strips away their humanity for, progress or order. It's a chilling look into that contempt some people in power add, seeing people as just tools, expendable.
And we also meet Don Custodio. He's the indefatigable project guy, the good authority.
Yeah.
His big idea for the lake involves raising ducks.
Ducks, right.
Which, of course, Doña Victorina immediately shoots down because she hates Ballot, those fertilized duck
A
eggs.
very practical problem for his grand scheme.
And then there's Ben Zabe, the writer, who thinks Manila thinks because he thinks. He jumps right in to support Don Custodio.
Always promoting himself.
Meanwhile, down on the lower deck, totally separate from all this upper deck absurdity, we get these little glimpses of the students, like Basilio and Isagani, talking about their petition for an academy to teach Castilian.
A whole different set of concerns down there.
Okay, now let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the human cost of this whole system. Because the weight of the injustice, it really hits you with the story of Cabsang Tales.
Oh, absolutely. His story is central.
He starts out, just a peaceful farmer, clears his own land, works hard, starts doing well.
A picture of honest labor.
But then this religious corporation just decides his land is theirs, and they start hiking up the rent, first 20 or 30 pesos, then suddenly it jumps to 200 pesos. And they have no proof, no title deeds, nothing.
And his reaction, his transformation, it's tragic, but also incredibly powerful. A symbol of someone pushed beyond endurance.
He rebels, refuses to pay.
Not a single quarto, he says. And he declares that anyone who wants his fields has to first irrigate them with his blood and bury in them his wife and daughter.
Wow.
It's raw, it's visceral. And it shows you, doesn't it, how this kind of systemic injustice can just push an ordinary peaceful person to, well, to extreme measures.
Well, which leads to him becoming an outlaw, right? Matanglan, after his daughter Julie is kidnapped for ransom.
Yes, the implication is strong. And then the murders, leaving his name written in blood, victims found with their mouths full of earth. It's a brutal outcome born from brutal treatment.
And Julie's story is just devastating, too. Her situation is so desperate, she has to become a servant, working for Sister Penchang just to try and earn the ransom money for her father.
The choices she faces are just impossible.
And that internal conflict she feels, giving up her love for Basilio because she thinks he's going to be a doctor and couldn't marry a pauper. It's heartbreaking.
It really is.
And her end. It's implied, isn't it? She goes to Padre Camorra to plead for Basilio's release from prison, and the outcome is suggested by her losing consciousness, and then that later scene of her grandfather, Tandang Selo, just weeping and beating on the convent door.
It raises this really tough question, What choices do people actually have when they're trapped in a system like this? Julie's story, it's a tragic illustration of how vulnerable people are when they have no power, no protection.
And how desperation leads them
To these awful ends, where the powerful just exploit that vulnerability.
It's incredibly hard to read about Julie without feeling just how trapped she was. What does Rizzle telling her story like this say about the ultimate price paid by the most vulnerable in the system?
It says the price is unbearable, that the system itself consumes innocence.
And then there's Basilio. His story is woven through all of this. Hardship, disillusionment.
A key perspective.
He's an orphan, his mother went mad, his brother was murdered. His journey to Manila is tough. But then Capitan Tiago helps him out, lets him study medicine without pay, just gives him leave to study at San Juan de Letran.
A bit of kindness in a harsh world.
But even then, he faces prejudice. He's seen as dirty, poorly dressed, professors look down on him. And the education itself, it's just rote memorization. He observes that one goes to college not to learn and study, but to gain credit for the course.
A critique of the educational system itself. Very hollow.
Despite all that, he starts to succeed in medicine. He has dreams of marrying Julie, having a future, until he gets thrown in prison himself.
His hopes get dashed too. It's relentless.
This struggle, it's not just personal, is it? It's bigger, intellectual, societal. Which brings us to that ideological clash over education. The students wanting their Castilian academy.
Yes, that petition is a major flashpoint. Macarag Isagani Sandoval leading the charge.
And the powers that be are not happy. Padre Cibola, the university vice-rector, he's totally against it. He's worried about losing prestige. He thinks it'll be the first dike broken down, that the students will get out of control.
Goodbye to moral strength, goodbye to everything. That's his fear. It really shows how threatened the establishment felt by an educated populace demanding more.
But then, surprisingly, you get Padre Fernandez. He's different.
A very interesting character, an exception.
He actually argues for granting the academy. He talks about how knowledge needs to be understood and applied. He says, the Indian idolizes justice. Is theirs a just desire? Then grant it.
Pretty radical stuff for a friar at that time.
And he even criticizes his own side, saying the friars don't want Filipinos enlightened because someday we shall declare ourselves free. He basically says making people criminals just by doubting them is stupid.
It's a crucial contrast, isn't it?
Hmm.
Padre Fernandez offers this rare, more enlightened view from within the colonial system. He gets that suppression just breeds more discontent. That real strength comes from justice, from empowering people, not keeping them ignorant.
A powerful internal critique.
Exactly, coming from inside the house, so to speak.
And it feels like in this society, truth itself is kind of slippery. You even see it in that weird scene with Mr. Leeds and his talking head show.
Yes, the Sphinx.
Ben Zabe, the journalist, just assumes it's done with mirrors. But then the head points right at Padre Salvi and shouts, "Murderer, hypocrite, liar." And Salvi just collapses in terror.
A very dramatic moment.
And what does Ben Zabe do? When he can't find any mirrors, nothing, absolutely nothing. To explain it, he writes an article about occult sciences.
Perfect example of spinning the narrative, right? If the truth is inconvenient, just dismiss it as nonsense or magic. It really makes you ask who controls the story.
And how easily those in power can brush off uncomfortable truths.
And the sources even mention that censorship was everywhere. You could insult Filipinos freely, but they weren't allowed to reply. It shows how deeply controlling the information flow was.
Which brings us, inevitably, back to Simon and his big reveal.
The unmasking.
Right. At Basilio's mother's grave, Basilio sees him without the blue goggles and recognizes him. He's the mysterious stranger from his childhood. He's Juan Crisostomo Ibarra, who everyone thought was dead.
A huge turning point. The mask comes off, literally and figuratively.
And Simon lays out his whole philosophy. He's back for vengeance. He tells Basilio, "You and I are the dregs of justice. We ought to aid each other." He calls for bloodshed, arguing that patriotism will always be a virtue among oppressed peoples.
No more assimilation talk.
No. He completely rejects Hispanization for assimilation for equal rights. He tells Filipinos to cultivate your own language, aspire to be a nation, think for yourself.
His logic is chillingly pragmatic. The fewer rights they allow you, the more reason you will have later to throw off the yoke. He's not looking for reform anymore.
No, it's total upheaval.
He believes fire and steel are the only ways to purify society. It's a brutal vision, but you can see how it's born from decades of simmering grievance.
Things are really heating up now, aren't they? We're heading towards a climax. The novel just starts unraveling lives as the tension builds.
You can feel it tightening.
Like Simon's influence. It's palpable. That scene where he displays his jewels at Cabe Sang Tail's house, diamonds as large as peas, emeralds, rubies, red as drops of blood.
An incredible display of wealth.
And he says, "Here I have, as in a medicine chest, life and death, poison and balm. With this handful, I can drive to tears all the inhabitants of the Philippines."
It's chilling. Tales is even tempted to sell Maria Clara's locket to save Julie.
That jewelry, it's more than just wealth, isn't it? It's a symbol. A symbol of the corrupting power of wealth, especially wealth gained through exploitation and meant for, well, for destruction, not good.
He sees it as a weapon.
Absolutely. A tool for control, for harm, for manipulation.
Then you have Placido Penitente reaching his breaking point.
Another character pushed too far. He's humiliated in his physics class by Padre Milon, the professor, who's just sarcastic and contemptuous. Placido finally snaps, walks out, and he's just filled with this rage, wanting revenge on the friars.
And who does he run into?
Simon, of course.
Right.
And he decides right then to join the revolution, give up his studies.
Placido's story really shows how those seemingly small, everyday injustices, they build up. They can push someone from just quietly putting up with things to actively wanting to fight back. It reminds you that oppression doesn't just crush people. Sometimes it lights a fire.
Yeah, we also get that scene at the French operetta. It works as this kind of distraction, but also holds up a mirror to the society's moral decay.
Yeah, the superficiality is striking.
There's this whole debate about whether the show is moral, with Don Custodio and Padre Ramin arguing. Meanwhile, Izagani's heartbroken, watching Palito with Juanito Pelaez.
And Pelaez is trying so hard to impress her with his French.
Oh, that's comical. Misunderstanding Cervantes and Domestiques, trying to sound sophisticated but just looking foolish.
It really lays bare how shallow Manila's elite could be. They're caught up in appearing cultured, following social rules, while totally ignoring the huge problems just festering underneath.
A total disconnect.
A privileged class, completely detached from the reality of the people they're supposed to be governing. There's a sharp contrast to the suffering happening right outside the theater.
And then, bam, Things really escalate. These threatening posters, the pasquinades, show up at the university.
And the reaction is immediate.
Student arrests. Right away, the general cracks down hard suspensions, deportations.
No investigation, just crackdown.
And we see how it affects everyone differently. Tadeo is actually happy, no school. Juanito desperately denies any involvement. Macarag manages to flee to Europe, but Basilio, he's stuck in prison.
Left with no protector.
And this is when Julia makes that desperate plea to Padre Camorra for Basilio's release, leading to her implied death.
Just tragic, compounding tragedy.
But there's one moment of defiance. A high official, completely disgusted by the general's actions, actually resigns. He tells the general, "Your Excellency has not been chosen by the Filipino people, but by Spain, all the more reason why you should treat the Filipinos well."
That's a powerful moment. A rare act of real moral courage, standing up against the injustice. It shows the government's heavy-handedness is just making things worse, fueling the rebellion, and maybe foreshadowing that things are about to really break.
And now, the fuse is well and truly lit. Basilio, he's changed. Bitter from prison, from Julie's fate, he goes to Simon.
Ready to join.
He says, "I am ready to serve you along with all the rest of the unfortunates." And Simon reveals his final, terrible plan.
The masterpiece of his vengeance.
This lamp, shaped like a pomegranate, but it's packed with dynamite, set to explode right at the wedding feast of Juanito Pelaez and Paulita Gomez.
Targeting the absolute top tier of Manila society, the foremost divinities.
And on a piece of parchment inside, the message, Mene Thesel Feres, Juan Crisostomo Ibarra. Wow, the sheer nerve of it, turning a wedding, a symbol of new beginnings, into this massive bomb. It's darkly brilliant.
It really is the peak of Simon's decades-long plan for revenge.
Yeah.
He's using the very symbols of colonial power and privilege, the grand party, the elite guests, as the targets for his fiery justice. It just underlines his belief that only violence, this kind of violent shock, can cleanse the system.
So the moment comes, the lamp is set down in the dining room. Basilio sees it. He's horrified, and he rushes to warn Izagani.
Knowing what's inside.
And Izagani, even though his heart is broken because Paulita chose Juanito, he does something incredible. He runs into the house.
To save her?
To save Paulita. He grabs the lamp and throws it into the river. The explosion is averted.
That act of selflessness from Izagani, even in his own pain, it's such a stark contrast to Simon's path of destruction. It hints, maybe, that there's another way to fight. A way driven by love, by principle, not just pure revenge, even if it ends tragically for him, too.
After the near disaster, what happens? The general quickly covers it up. Benzabe tries to write about it, but censorship stops him.
Narrative control again.
And Simon. He's wounded, he escapes and takes refuge with Padre Florentino. And there, dying from poison he took himself, he makes his final confession.
Laying it all bare.
He defends his actions, the fire and steel, the idea that the end justifies the means. He admits he deliberately encouraged tyranny just to provoke a rebellion.
But Padre Florentino, he doesn't just accept it. He offers this incredibly powerful counter-argument.
Yeah, his wisdom really shines through.
He argues that real freedom, true liberty, it isn't something oppressors just hand over. It has to be earned through a people's own struggle, their sacrifice. And he criticizes Simon's method, saying they just spread more corruption. He warns, chillingly, that if the slaves of today will be the tyrants of tomorrow.
That's a heavy warning.
And then he makes that profound appeal to the youth. It still gives me chills. Where are the youth who will consecrate their golden hours, their illusions, and their enthusiasm to the welfare of their native land? Pure and spotless must the victim be, that the sacrifice may be acceptable.
Wow. A call for a different kind of sacrifice.
A moral sacrifice rooted in purity of intent.
And the ending is so symbolic. After Simon dies, Padre Florentino takes that chest, Simon's fabulous wealth, all those jewels.
The source of so much potential corruption.
And he throws it into the sea. He says that true wealth is not gold, but justice and dignity. It feels like this rejection of the whole corrupting influence, a hope for maybe a purer future built on something better than money and power.
That act by Padre Florentino might just be the most lasting message of the whole book. It hammers home that material wealth, especially wealth gained through oppression or used for destruction, it's ultimately empty without, moral integrity, without real liberation. It's a call for change from within, just as much as any external revolution.
So, wrapping up this deep dive into the reign of greed, it really shows us the devastating impact of that colonial greed, the hypocrisy, the complex ways people react to being oppressed, and that timeless struggle between well, violent revolution and trying to find change through principle.
It leaves you with a lot to think about.
Definitely. So, what does this all mean for you listening now? Padre Florentino asks that question. Where are you, youth? If Simon's path was flawed and Padre Florentino's vision of earned liberty is still something people strive for, what does that tell us about the quest for real justice, for nationhood? Not just in the Philippines back then, but, well, anywhere people fight for freedom today.
It's a question that echoes, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes you think about patriotism, what it really means, the role of education, and just how much individuals are shaped by their times, but also how they can shape them. Lots to chew on there.